Premiership. After a busy weekend of fixtures, yet again, disappointment for Rangers. Finally, a first win for Wilfred Nancy, and Hearts running away with the title as it seems. Massive shout out to our sponsors, VSN, and everybody that's been watching and listening on Spotify. It's been going up and up every week, so a massive help. Joined again by always Brooklyn, and this week we have a guest, Jamie, from Off the Underside Podcast. So it's different having a wee guest on, but thanks for being a part of it, Jamie. How are you?
No, it's a pleasure, mate. Thanks very much for inviting me on. It's always nice to be invited on with other kind of Scottish football podcasters, mate. So it's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Good. And Brooklyn, how are you?
Don't even want to get in it, mate. I'm actually fucking sick of it. Ever since we started this podcast, it's just been misery. And to add on to it, mate, don't know about yous, right? I don't know if I've done a typical guy thing. I've done zero Christmas shopping. I don't know if yous two have managed to get everything sorted, mate, but I've got nothing.
I'm prepared for a change.
The missus is prepared to use what's happened.
Exactly what I was going to say, mate. The missus does everything for me, man. I don't do a fucking thing.
This is what I mean. So I'm not as fortunate as you two. So I'll be leaving work tomorrow, and I will be going straight to Silverburn, and that's going to be fucking hectic. So I mate, just nothing but misery, mate. As all it is. But as long as I'm sure you've got a smile back for reasons I'm sure we'll get into.
I will. It's a few weeks of disappointment. Obviously, last week I went on. Because that's where we usually get a good bit of feedback, especially on like the Spotify, which is weird because YouTube you're more likely to get comments. But my rant on Wilfred Nancy was picked up quite a bit, but it's obviously turned a wee bit. So we will get right into that. But to start with, we'll just quickly go over obviously the predictions me and Brooklyn done. Throughout the season, Brooklyn, you were on 41 points, I'm on 54. You're now up to 46 and I'm on 61. So we'll go over what we predicted. So we involved the Dundee United and Celtic game. You put 2-1. No, you put 3-1 Dundee United and it was 2-1. I said 2-2. Sparta Prague and Aberdeen was 3-0. I predicted 3-1. You went 4-1. Dundee United Hibs, I went 1 each and it was 1 each. Dundee and you went 2-0. Kelly losing at home 1-0 to Falkirk. We both backed a Falkirk win. Obviously, you've seen the Kelly players going off their nut at the fans as well. Motherwell to beat Dundee. We both thought St Mirren would drop points, which they won. You backed Rangers, of course. I backed a draw, and it was a win for Hearts. And I backed 3-1 Celtic against Aberdeen, which it was, and you said 2-0. So I got 7 points and you got 5. But I will start there. I'll come to you, Jamie, straight away, if that's all right. Obviously, you being a Celtic fan as well. Before Sunday, what did you make of the appointment of Wilfred Nancy? Did you think he was the right man at all?
Well, like yourself, mate, I've done a couple of ranting videos about that. I think that's probably the reason I got invited on here, that he's caught that one. So that went a bit mental. But listen, I had a Columbus Crew fan on the podcast, and I was just talking to him about it and that, because we wanted to find out a wee bit about Nancy and all that before he came. And after speaking to him, I was quite confident. Do you know what I mean? I was like, you know what, there might be something in this guy. You know what I mean? But it turns out he's not got a clue. I don't care what anybody says. Even yesterday, listen, this three at the back thing, playing a high line, it's not for me, man. They're still totally exposed at the back. I mean, even yesterday's goal for Aberdeen, it was a simple ball through. You know what I mean? Dice Amanda gets robbed in the middle of the park. A simple ball through, one-on-one with Trusty, and it's a goal. And all right, Celtic did play well yesterday, creating chances, but just couldn't stick many of them away. In fact, it was surprising we even got 3, because the amount of chances we had was incredible. But I mean, I was willing to give him a chance, and to be honest with you, I still am. You know what I mean? It's not over yet, but it's been a terrible, terrible start. And that for me, and I know loads of people going about, oh, it was a free hit against Roma and all that, but that performance, man, that performance was just shocking. We couldn't get near the ball, you know, and it was like total men against boys, man. And people say, like, even Chris Sutton, I've seen Chris Sutton saying, oh, you know, that was a free hit and all that. Chris Sutton's teams, when he played under Martin O'Neill, they would never have played like that. You know what I mean? All right, we weren't expecting a result, but put up a bit of fight, put up something, show your skills. But there was nothing in that game, and that really put me off. And then obviously going to the cup final and that, and it's just shocking. But listen, maybe he'll turn a corner here. Maybe we'll get a tune at him, and he'll get a tune at the players and that. But listen, I'm not confident with the start he's made anyway.
I think what
Aye.
you said there's probably spot on. See the fact when people say it's a free hit, it's like I think what you're saying as a Rangers or a Celtic fan or whatever it may be, when you are calling for a free hit, what you're saying is we're going into this game not expecting a win. But like you're saying, the biggest thing that you can take away is the performance because you're looking at it and going, he's only a couple of days in the door, but these are still top level athletes. You don't go to a Rangers Celtic if you're not that sort of ability. They should be able to, if the manager's delivering his point across right, you should at least be able to see something. Whether it's been a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks, you should see something that you can take away and go, that's a positive. I feel as if that's the biggest thing. I know obviously we're kind of talking about the Aberdeen game here, but going back to the Roma game, there was nothing you could take as a positive. I think the only positive is the fact the scoreline wasn't more. I think, and it was much the
Yeah.
same as when Roma came to Ibrox. It was like they just took the foot off the gas, and that was it because it could have been ugly. But the one thing I'll ask, and obviously I think I've said this to you before, Shay, and it's all if buts and maybes. Do you think that you would see a significant improvement in Celtic with Nancy and Shard still, but with you had the availability of a Vickers and a Johnson? And I know there's kind of question marks of where Jota would fit in, but do you think even just inserting those two players would make a massive difference, or do you still think it's a system issue more than anything?
Personally, I think obviously you get better players in the team, it might make a difference, but it's the system for me, you know. And you look at even the cup final and that, he played Kieran Tierney further forward on a left kind of wing back position. Doesn't work. He played Tunecti in that position as well. Doesn't work. You know, even I think Carter Vicker was struggling in this system. Do you know what I mean? It's like
I agree.
because it's too high. It's too high a back line. You know, and Austin Trusty's not got the biggest pace in the world. Every single game now that we've had Nancy, Austin Trusty gets totally exposed at the back. You know what I mean? You look at the Dundee United. Their second goal, was it a second? Either second goal. No, all right, it was a peach for the boy. You know what I mean? But see, just before that, he's through on goal, and it was just a simple ball, and it was a header on for Fata, and you know he's through on goal. Casper Schmeichel makes a save, and then it goes for a throw in, and it's a goal. You know what I mean? But it's like it's just so many times. Cup final was several times like that happening and stuff, and Carter Vickers he's not the paciest guy in the world. He's not like that.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be a positive when he comes into the team. Obviously, like I said, though, he is a cracking defender. Guys like Jota and all that are going to come in and make you better. But until this system improves, until he realises that it just doesn't work, I think it's not the back three that's the problem. It's the high line for me. You know what I mean? People going about like Martin O'Neill back in the day and that. We had Martin O'Neill when we had a back three and it was Bobo Baldi, Yusuf Harn, Johan Mjällby, but they all knew their jobs and they were never all halfway up the park. It was always like sitting just outside the box and preparing that. You Didier Agat on the left and Alan Thompson, Didier Agat on the right, Alan Thompson on the left, and they all knew their jobs in and out. These guys like Austin Trusty, Liam Scales, not they don't know what they're doing. They're not used to this system.
Do you think that?
I agree as well. Sorry, but when you
No, of
think
course not.
people obviously say he should have never have been brought in with their on a fixtures, but see when you actually look at it, he came into a game where the team were full of confidence, but you're also playing against a out of form Hearts side at home. You're playing an out of form St Mirren side in a cup final where the majority of the stadium is your fans. You're going away to an out of form Dundee United side. So it was a somewhat tougher on our fixtures, but the whole league this year has been sort of mix and match regarding who's been good one week and who's been bad the next week. But I don't think he's helped himself with the stuff he's said and just the arrogance on him as well. Like, I think people like the arrogance at Ange, but it's because I think he lost his first 3 league games, but he started to, you could see it early doors. Whereas yesterday was maybe the first time that I've seen it, but I'm still not confident in it at all. You know, we definitely do need a striker, like 100%, but I don't think a striker's going to be like the answer to us because if you bring in players for his system, if he gets sacked in the summer, then you've got players who play a 3-4-3 and not a 4-3-3. So it's big question marks over him already. Definitely. What were you going to say, Brooklyn?
I was going to say, where do you both? I'll probably start with you, Shay. Should Schmeichel be dropped? Because so obviously I've said to you before, I don't watch too much actual Celtic games, but I've not. I was talking to a boy in work earlier, basically, and he was saying that Schmeichel's becoming a problem. And I always feel as if keepers are maybe a little bit too protected. Obviously, you see Dundee United, they don't have, like, they'll just interchange your keepers are quite happy to do that. I think when Tynecastle came in, he didn't really do much wrong. Do you think it's maybe a time where Tynecastle, and again, there's arguably bigger problems. Obviously, you're kind of saying it's more, it's to do with the actual high line and everything else. It's not the actual ability. But do you feel as if Schmeichel should be taken out, or do you think he's not really the issue?
I think, I don't know, because he is making mistakes, but at the same time, when you've got a really, really inexperienced back three, I don't know if you want to put in a really, really inexperienced young goalkeeper who might not be as commanding as Schmeichel. But the thing is, sometimes it is just down to mistakes, and Schmeichel is making, at least, whether it's letting a goal in or it's just multiple misplaced passes. He's mad for the half volley out the box that he doesn't really like to throw it. But 9 times out of 10 it goes to the other player. But I definitely think he's maybe one big mistake away from getting swapped out. I think the biggest mistake this year has probably been that game against Braga where the guy scored for 30 yards. But see, under Martin O'Neill, that run of sort of kind of 5 or 6 games, he made some really big saves in the game. He made about 3 or 4 big saves in the semi-final against Rangers. But it saves that Sinisalo probably would have made as well. But no, to answer your question just fully, I think he should still be in the now, the busy Christmas period, and just because we've one game doesn't mean that's it all turned. But I think if he makes one big error in a game again, I think you would see Sinisalo brought in definitely.
What's kind of your opinion on it, Jamie? Are you in agreement, or are you a bit more kind of on the fence of he has been an issue this season?
No, I'm with Shay, mate. I think that Casper Schmeichel's by far, he's no the problem at Celtic now. Obviously, there has been a couple of errors, as you mentioned, the Braga goal and stuff, but obviously last season, the cup final as well, it was a big mistake against Aberdeen. But I mean, as you say, Shay, like the amount of saves that he does pull off kind of saves that for me. I think that
Yeah.
there's been games where he has saved us from getting a right good down, to be honest. And then for as Sinisalo, all right, he'd come in and he looked okay, but he was never really under any kind of threat. There wasn't really kind of a game where he had to make loads of top saves or anything like that. You know what I mean? So for me, Casper Schmeichel, he's getting on a bit now and stuff like that, but he's by far the problem at Celtic right now. He's all right in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? He will make the odd mistake, and his age is kind of against him and stuff. But no, I would be keeping Casper in there for another season anyway.
Because see if you swap the keepers, right? If you swap the keepers, so if Sinisalo start making some mistakes, do we go back to what we done at the COVID year and start playing our third goalkeeper? Do you know what I mean? And you've just knocked another young boy's confidence. So I think if Celtic maybe went, 8 or 10 points clear, which probably isn't going to happen this year, and Schmeichel started to make mistakes, you maybe give Sinisalo the full Scottish Cup run, like even the Scottish Cup final. But I think it's that high pressure this season now. You can't be dropping experienced players. Like if Callum McGregor has a really bad 2 or 3 games, even if he wasn't the Celtic captain, I would still keep him in that midfield just because when it gets to the nitty gritty in this league, I feel that it is very important for you
Well,
to
you look
have
at
players in the team that know the league.
you look at the St Mirren game, and it's like you're saying when it comes to that experience, it's the way that we spoke about it, and that goal that McGregor scores, he never mind, and I said at the time, never mind the actual finish. It's that first touch he takes under pressure where he lets the ball run across his
Yeah.
body, opens it up, takes the touch to set himself, and it's like you're saying you probably do in a season like this where it is so up and down. I think you just probably are both right in the sense of keeping the experienced players in, and I think as well it wouldn't look. I think the biggest thing as well is the last thing that Nancy can really do is then upset kind of senior players in the team. Because the minute he starts to do that, it's a pure old football cliche shout, but if he starts to do that and loses his restroom, he's fucked. Because I think there is
Yeah.
already, kind of like you're saying, there was those rumours after the Dundee United game. Apparently, he met with the board. Again, whether we can't really comment on that because we don't know how true it is, but you're probably looking at a situation now where Celtic, he can't really be taking those sort of risks. He does need to stick with experienced players and give them the chance to probably dig him out a hole more than anything else.
For me,
Yeah.
that's been one of Nancy's biggest failings since he's come in. It's like, you look at Nigrin scored yesterday, right? He was good enough for Nancy for him to start the first couple of games under him. Then he doesn't get a single minute in a cup final. and you're like, what is going on here?
Aye.
Yang as well. Yang starts the games. Didn't he get it? Didn't he? He came on, I think, with 10 minutes to go in the cup final. It just seems to me that Dauncey doesn't know his best team, his best way of playing, and that is worrying at this point because we've known that he was coming for a while, so he must have been sitting watching the games, analysing the players, and it seems to me like he's done no research on what's been happening and stuff. And then obviously the whole thing with Martin O'Neill came out that he just sat with him for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and basically on your way, which is just silly in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? That as you mentioned earlier, the arrogance. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'll come in, I'll do it my way, and see the thing you mentioned earlier about Ange as well. I always remember Ange at the start. Obviously, we all know that he had his system, ended up getting onto Ange ball and all this, but at the very start, he was saying, I don't want to give the players too much. I just want to just kind of play the system that they've been playing. And, obviously we did lose the first 3 away league games and that, but it was just bedding them in. And, and Nancy just came in and ripped up the book and just said, you know what, I'm doing it my way. And it's not worked. It's not worked. You know what I mean?
I think what you said there about when Nancy only having 10 minutes of Martin O'Neill, whether you're like Brendan Rodgers coming in being a Celtic fan when he was young, same with Neil Lennon. I even go back to when Ronnie Dyler was there, I was only sort of 15, 16, but when he came in, you felt like pretty early doors he knew the history of the club. When Ange came in, he knew the history very well. These managers would have spent hours sitting with Martin O'Neill, especially coming into a high-pressured season. But what you said there, I agree 100%. He came in and he has just ripped everything up and just made it his way or no way. Obviously, even stuff with like Stevie Woods, who's been at the club for years, apparently he was possibly even told that he wasn't needed as well, which is just baffling. This is a guy that's been at Celtic for God knows how long, and this guy's walked in the door and within 1 week he's telling somebody that he might not be needed. So he put himself under pressure straight away. But also, even at the weekend there, it's hard to not give Aberdeen credit for taking Celtic that late on in the game at 1 each. But at the same time, they never really done anything to give them to make it exciting for them. They weren't great, and especially I think that's what makes it worse. They came off a game on Thursday night away from home, and they're taking Celtic to the 87th minute to get beat. So you do need to give them credit for that, but they still aren't that great. But I think regarding Aberdeen, the sort of Jimmy Tilleen getting sacked ship is probably sailed. I think his job is more than safe for now. But Brooklyn, do you think obviously they're in the same amount of points as what your top 6 shout was, Falkirk? Do you think Aberdeen could take that 6th spot over Falkirk?
Do you know, I see Aberdeen started to get that kind of uptick of form, but I still look at them and I just don't, despite the fact they've got I can never remember, the boy they brought in for Sunderland, they've got Alex Nisbet and everything else, they just look as if they struggle to score goals. Like, you don't actually see them ever scoring more than kind of 2 or 3 goals in a game. I think they've maybe done it once or twice this season at most, but obviously, as we're aware, the first opening 5 or 6 games, they couldn't buy a goal. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to get sacked. I still think, despite having he's got so much credit in the bank for the cup win last season, so I think Aberdeen fans do have a kind of soft spot for him. Obviously, they've actually probably done a better account themselves at points in Europe than what we expected. Obviously, only getting bet 1-0 off Strasbourg as well, a team that I think we both predicted were going to run over the top of them.
Yeah, we did.
But I still think they're going to falter this season. I don't actually see they're going to get top 6, if I'm being honest with you, mate.
Really? Jamie, what about you? What do you think Aberdeen and Jimmy Teelan? Do you think he was very lucky to still be in a job this year, obviously?
I think he is very lucky, but it's also pretty refreshing. Do you know what I mean? Because we had this kind of scenario last season with David Gray at Hibs, where everybody was thinking, right, time now to pull the trigger and let David Gray go. And, obviously he went on to have a really good season. And then, as you say, Brooklyn, you know what I mean? Like the and the credit in the bank for Jimmy Tillene is there, obviously winning a cup. They started off really well last season and that, so it's quite refreshing to see that Aberdeen did stick with him, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? It's so easy just to go, you know what, it's not working, and you know what I mean, straight away. But I'm saying this after I'm calling for non-CC after 4 games, you know what I mean? But
I know.
But no, see, to be honest with you, I don't want Celtic to sack Nancy. I never wanted them to. I wanted.
It's based on what you're seeing at the end of the day.
Aye.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Tilleen, I think he's a good manager. He's doing okay. Listen, what can Aberdeen really expect out of a season? But I think they will easily finish top six. I think they will get top six, and I think that I think they'll be lucky to win another cup this season, right enough. But
Aye.
I think they'll
Well,
definitely finish top six.
that's obviously that's their European football done as well. They never actually lost many of their games after Thursday night football, which is rare for Scottish teams, even Celtic and Rangers now, but especially teams who play in Europe at the start of the year, they never usually have a good start. So obviously disappointing they never get any more than 3 or 4 points really, but that is their European run done. Moving on just to the other game that was on Sunday, obviously league leaders Hearts against what is that Brooklyn, fourth place Rangers there. I'll let you take this one away. What did obviously Rangers did go 1-0 up and it get chopped off, but I still feel that in the first 20-30 minutes it looked like Rangers' game. Would you agree?
To an extent, mate, but it's like it just constantly feels as if it's keeping possession for the sake of it. It feels as if there's no real urgency. There's nothing. Obviously, you can't just keep harping back on at it, right? But you look at the time where it was under Gerrard and it was the kind of European nights and it was the season that we won the league and everything else. It was always fast flowing. You always had runners off the ball. Whether obviously the ball went to Kent, it was a Rebo bombing on behind. Kamara would also push up. You never really had someone that was sitting. Whereas Rangers are starting constantly with two holding midfielders. No matter who they're playing, usually in any other season, you can kind of justify it when you're going away to Tynecastle, especially in a game that you're really saying is a kind of must win. But it's the fact it's just so consistent. And the problem is as well, Raskin has been in and out the team because the start of the season, everything that was happening in behind with Russell Martin and whatever else it may be. See, since he's came back in, the first game he came back in, well, he played Hibs in the cup. He looked brilliant. He scored the header. Looked as if he was kind of fighting for it. See, since that game, the best part of 3 months ago, he's been abysmal. He's been miles off it. And the thing is, he's still getting defended because fans still think it's you need to choose a player or the club sort of thing. And obviously with all the turmoil that's happened between Russell Martin and the two people obviously the back room who are now gone, Farewell and Stewart, everyone was kind of taking Raskin's side. He's not kicked on any sort of form whatsoever. I think he looked at a wee boy, and that's the problem with Rangers this season. They look like wee boys. And Cammy Devlin bullied him across the park. Diamande should, mate. I think I said it 2 weeks ago. Mate, I've not seen someone play so bad and consistently start for any team. He's not creating anything whatsoever. Kisama obviously was his best form was at Sheffield Wednesday under Danny Rule. He seems as if he's not favoured. He's getting brought on in games every single time. Honestly, it's just at a point, mate, where it's the same thing constantly. And I'll be entirely honest, I put a game on, I watched about the first 30, 40 minutes and I just fell asleep. Mate, like genuinely, genuinely just turned the TV off, mate, and went to sleep because it's just you just know. See when Hearts score that second goal, you just know it's done. And then they should have been 3-0 up. The ball gets cut back to Shanklin, then opens up his body and it just goes by the post. When I seen that, I was genuinely thinking this could be 4 or 5 because there was just nothing. It was just so sloppy across the park. But again, it's one of those ones where we've said before, we're really guilty for saying Rangers and Celtic were off it when a team does well. You've also got a massive credit to Hearts because that is them now bet Rangers and Celtic home and away. And in any season, that's ridiculous. Never mind a season where they're actually probably classed as must-win games. So they'll get that kind of added pressure. It's not just can you beat the team that's at the top. They are now the team that's at the top, and it's trying to make sure that they stay there. And obviously they slipped up a little bit a couple of weeks ago with that kind of poor run of form, but they seem as if they've figured it back out. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that little kind of barren spell as a club where you start to go off up, but it's how you pull together after it, and that's the thing. If one manager is going to be able to pull a full team back together, it's Derek McInnes, and you've seen it the past couple of weeks.
Jamie, what did you think, like, kind of before the season started? Obviously, Rangers with the takeover, them spending all this money. Like, what was your expectations for them coming into the season, and then what do you make of them now? Obviously,
My expectations were, let's see who they appoint as manager. And when I seen it was Russell Martin, I thought, right, this could be another tricky season for Rangers. And it's turned out to be that way. But see, you're saying there, Brooklyn, about consistency in the game and stuff like that, and you've never seen a player play consistently bad and still get a game. I'll raise you Rio Hatate, mate, because you can tell you the watch Celtic, mate. That guy is honestly useless. But I've got a question. Sorry, I'll answer your question first, mate. About I was expecting Rangers to put up a title challenge this season.
Yeah.
But see, as soon as Russell Martin came out and slated his players in the first game of the season, I thought that's it. That's it. You can't. I mean, the first game of the season that should have been about all his new players and everybody buoyant and up for it and starting a new fresh season and all that. And he's came out and slated them straight away. That was just a massive, massive error on his part. And he showed total arrogance, as we spoke about earlier on with Nonce. But Russell Martin was unbelievably arrogant in how he done things. But I got a question for Brooklyn. See, you're talking about Raskin. Before I was on here, I done a podcast with a Rangers fan there, and he said the same thing about Raskin not performing. I was quite surprised about that, but why is it you think that is? You think it's just because of the whole fallout with Russell Martin, and then obviously him leaving, then you've got a new manager in, and the expectations, they had a great season last season. So do you think it's just kind of like the backdraw of that kind of thing?
I think, to be honest, it's probably a multiple factors. Like, I think obviously the way he was treated at the start of the season, that probably did leave a sour taste in his mouth. He's obviously now went on to become a Belgian international quite consistently. He's in every single squad. He seems to start most of the games now for them as well. So there's every chance he's probably. I think when he first even came into Rangers, I think he did say in an interview in like day one, I kind of view this as a stepping stone, like my dreams to play in the Premier League. So when you're now becoming a Belgian international, obviously playing alongside some of the players that they have, there is every chance he's looked at the way he's been treated. He's looking at his contract running down in the summer, and probably his head's turned to an extent. Because, like you're saying, his contract's up in the summer, which means he doesn't necessarily need to continue to perform at a high level, and that sounds mental. But it's not as if he needs to rely on someone coming in and offering money for him. He can sign a pre-contract, so there's maybe not that sort of, I'm going to give 110%, I'm going to risk injuring myself in a World Cup year, in a year where I could potentially be moving to the Premier League. Again, we don't know this, obviously, I can't really speak for the boy, but it seems as if there's a load of things. And probably as well, to be fair to him, and I think this is the more realistic answer, you look around that squad and you don't think there's a single player performing. So it's probably really difficult for him, who likes to drop and get the ball for the keeper. And that's kind of what he was so good at, was driving forward or picking that pass. You don't even seem as if you've got that anymore. Like, again, talking about wasted jerseys, see when you watch Asgard, I'm sick of hearing people say there's a player in there or you can see there's talent, because you've not seen it. And people are just saying that because they've seen a couple of clips on YouTube, or they've heard good things for someone down south that's watched free looking games. There's just so many issues across that team where I think that is the biggest issue. It's just, I think it is a collective, but I'm at a point now where something needs to be done, because you're looking at it and you're probably saying the only player that's actually got pass marks this season is Connor Barron, and that's no harm to him. But it's much like last season where we were sitting as Rangers fans and saying the reason Connor Barron is getting so much praise is because of the amount of energy he's bringing, and he's shown he's giving 110%. That should be a minimum at any club. Again, never mind a Rangers or Celtic. But you're watching the likes of Ras and Diamande, they're just walking about the park. Like, that's the thing, and it's if they lose the ball, it's everyone else's fault. It's never theirs. So I think that's like a long. I think there's multiple reasons why Raskin's been so far off it, but you can't justify it. You can't just keep doing that thing. And it's like you're saying that you're probably seeing with Celtic fans, where people are going, aye, but look what Hatate's done for us before. That's before. You can't keep living in that situation where you say these players, because I think the thing is as well, kind of like slightly what I mentioned about Tynecastle. See, if you're a player and you're sitting on a bench, again, at any club, and you're watching a player in your position, it doesn't matter if you're amateur football, junior football, whatever it is, if you're watching a player playing your same position and you're knocking your pan in every single day in training, you're watching them train, skate by, and playing horrendous at the weekend, and they're still getting picked. You're sitting at a point going, what am I meant to do here? Like, what else can I do to actually get a start in this team? And again, that's something else that over time probably does create a divide. Like, I know he's injured now, but no wonder Bailey Rice wants to leave. When you're looking at a young player like Bailey Rice, who again, so highly rated, goes to Rangers from Motherwell. And as I said, I know he's injured now, but even when he wasn't, he couldn't get in the squad, no matter how bad the midfield was. You're watching Joe Rothwell start games or come on to games, you're watching Diamande getting brought on. It's just, again, if you are a young player at Rangers Celtic, you're just like, what the fuck is the point now? So, aye, as I said, probably just sum up, I think just Rangers from start to finish, man. It's just, there's, again, you're sitting December and you've got nothing to play for. I know the Scottish Cup's not started yet, but realistically, it's always good to win a cup. But again, as a Rangers or Celtic, that's kind of secondary. You want the league as number one, then the Scottish Cup, then the League Cup. But Europe's done. As far as I'm concerned, that's the league done. You had that kind of small glimmer of hope there. We had 20 points out of 24. But there's only so much you can do with that squad at the end of the day.
See when you're going on the players there, Brooklyn, like, see just regarding the game at the weekend, with the second goal, do you think that is a
Mate,
howler from Butland? Because my thinking is it is a howler, but there's not really much of defence. But just to play devil's advocate, is he just not expecting him to shoot from there at all? And the pace of the ball
there's
just...
no excuse. See, the strike for
I
Shandon, right?
agree with you.
Take nothing away, right? The way he connects with that ball, there's only a few players in the league that can connect to a ball like that. Like, that's the thing. And the fact that he has tried that is, again, one of those ones where it's probably a handful of players in the league are trying that for that angle. But there's no excuse. It's like, see, the more you watch it, and when it is slowed down, it's just worse and worse and worse because he just gets his angles all wrong. He thinks he's covered his front post, and it's a time where, again, it's probably a bit like you were saying, both he's kind of bit Schmeichel, is there is games where Butland's kept Rangers in it, especially I think when he first came in that first season, he was ridiculous. At points last season, obviously had his up and downs, but aye, it's one of those ones. He's 100% to blame for that goal, but again, there's like exactly like you said. To be honest, there's bigger issues, and that's the thing. Like when I watch Giga, man, how Wolves paid 12.5 million for him, that just shows again the way football's going as far as stat base. Wolves have looked at him and went, he's big, he's athletic, because he's fucking rapid, to be fair, but he's big, he's athletic, he's strong. And that's the thing, he's got no football ability whatsoever. That's all he's been signed for by Wolves, is they've looked at some form of stats and probably looked at his sprint speed or something. But aye, there's problems all across the board, and again, it's an issue where it's like you're saying, so much optimism this summer, you're spending 30 odd million, and you're actually, again, you're looking at it, you've got a £9 million striker. If you told anyone you've got even as much as a £5 million striker coming off the bench, you'd be quite optimistic, or you'd be like, why is he not starting? I actually dread a £9 million striker getting subbed on. I know he scored at the weekend, but again, he's got 2 league goals all season. That's embarrassing. So
Jamie, see just regarding Hearts, like me and Brooklyn will know, like when I go on about, like I used to go on mad about Derek McInnes, like when he was a Kelly manager, just absolutely went on about him. But would you ever, like, say Nancy was to get sacked in a month's time, would you ever take like a, because I think Brooklyn, you said maybe a bit of Steve Robinson as well, would you ever take like a McInnes or a Robinson at Celtic?
No, they two. No, I mean they're two big Rangers men, so I don't think they would come for starters. And that's no fair point of, that would their heart really be in it, Stephen Robinson, Derek McInnes at Celtic? Let's be honest, probably not.
Aye.
So for like a football standard point of view, I would take them. If I was a Rangers fan, I would say, take a punt on. Obviously, McInnes knocked it back a few years ago. You can't really blame him. Obviously, the goings on behind the scenes at Rangers and stuff like that. But I would take that level of manager if I was a Rangers fan. Do you know what I mean? Like, sorry, I would take those two as a Rangers fan. I would take that level of manager if I was if it was Celtic.
Aye.
But as for Stephen Robinson, McInnes, they're no coming to Celtic in a million years anyway.
Just to maybe go back quickly again, I know we're trying to make this a Rangers and Celtic podcast apparently, so we do apologise, but just to probably last thing to touch on Celtic, I think you kind of were going to mention it earlier on, and I think we kind of moved on. Who was your preferred candidate before Nancy came in? Was it given Martin O'Neill until the end of the season, or was there anyone else that you were quite interested in?
For me, there was only one man, and listen, I don't think he'll ever leave Norway, but it was Knutsen at Bodo Glimp.
Aye.
That's the guy I wanted, mate. You know, I mean, he's won umpteen amount of trophies over there, performs really well in Europe all the time. I think he'd be an ideal fit for Celtic and their kind of their model. Like trying to nurture kind of younger players and they try to pick players from over Europe and the world and stuff. So that'd be perfect. But for some reason, he doesn't want to see me leave Norway. But the Martin O'Neill situation, I was just talking about this earlier as well. It's like absolutely bang on what you said earlier, Shay, about like you know, Martin O'Neill, 73-year-old. But I wanted a manager to come in, and he left Celtic. That was the point you made, that he left Celtic at a very good position. In a very good position. I totally agree, mate. Because everybody's going on about the timing and stuff like that. Listen, the timing couldn't have been better for Nancy to come in. You know what I mean? We were in a cup final. We beat our rivals in a semi-final. He'd won all the league matches available. We had one bad performance, obviously, in Michelin. But I mean, uh, I wanted Martin O'Neill to do what he done. He came in, steadied the ship, and then see the thing is, see if we'd have brought a manager in and we'd have won all these games, nobody would be talking about timing. Nobody would be saying a thing about timing. You know what I mean? It's just the fact that Nancy has made an arse of it in the last kind of 4 matches. Do you know what I mean? So we needed a manager in for the long term future, for all the players to kind of bed in and realise this is a guy for the long term. But I mean, I don't want Martin O'Neill to end, but if things keep going the way they're going, man, he will end up back in that dugout, I think, before the end of the season.
I think that's a possibility as well. And obviously, same with Knutson as well. If he ever goes to another club, I'd love to know what he gets offered to go, because he is pretty set on never leaving there. It was just one of the things that just happens in life as well. Obviously, the kind of to be honest, I wanted the Bruges manager more, and I think after we appointed Nonce, I think he got sacked like the following weekend, and that's just literally typical. So we'll see, but I do agree with you as well. I think if unless Nancy was get sacked in maybe March or April, when the league or whatever could be pretty much done, then they might bring in the actual manager for next year, because they'll go, right, you've got no pressure, you've not got a league to worry about. Whereas I think if Nancy gets sacked in January or February, where the league's still to play for, they might just go, right, we just need Martin O'Neill to get us there, just get us over the line. Because I think if you were to get rid of Nancy and bring in either that Bruges manager or any other candidates we were linked with, you're bringing them in an even more high pressured situation, because you've brought in a manager in a pressured situation and he's made an arse of it. But I wouldn't complain if Martin was to come back, but it's just, it would be worrying if Nancy's to get sacked that quick, because the board have then just made a fool of themselves again, which has been pretty obvious this whole season.
I think the next 3 matches for Celtic are absolutely huge. You know what I mean? You've got away to Livingston, away to Motherwell, and away to Rangers. At home to Rangers. There, if we need maximum points out of him, if he doesn't get maximum points out of him, then he's going to have to get sacked. It's going to have to happen.
See, just to touch on that Livingston game as well, and this is
That's this is a Celtic fan, which is mental, but innit?
No, but mate, see, to touch on that Livingston game, by the way, and this is obviously more of a league-wide issue. Someone was saying to me the day, and I don't know if you can confirm this, for non-season ticket holders, it's £40 for a Livingston game and £9 delivery. So you're paying 49 quid to watch Celtic Livingston, and you wouldn't even pay that when Celtic were flying. And I think this is a problem now across the league. We are looking at it, and people will pay that, especially at this time of year, whether it's to go and see a Hearts, a Hibs, a Rangers. To be fair, if it's their team, they'll pay it. But the thing is, clubs are doing that because they know at this time of year people are off work. Their kids have maybe never been to games. I think that is fucking criminal, by the way. And you're seriously getting to a point where there's only certain games. You probably maybe say the Old Firm should be a game that you'd expect to maybe pay 50 odd quid for. Any other game in the league, I know it's obviously not practical, but it should be. I would love clubs to disclose how they figure out the pricing for each individual seat, because they can't. There's no way they can keep getting away with it, because it's just going to keep going up and up and up. And I say, you're paying 50 quid to go and watch a team that, again, with all due respect, Celtic are on top of the league and Livingston are at the bottom. You know what I mean? It's not as if it's a title fight or anything you're watching. It's literally.
Dundee United done it last year when Celtic could win the league. I think they put
I remember we spoke about that at the time.
Nearly £55 they put it at. And obviously you mentioned like Celtic and Rangers games I can understand, but see this year the first Celtic Rangers match of the season has probably been the worst standard of football of the whole league season. The 0-0 game at Ibrox. That was one of the worst games of the whole season.
Shocking, man.
So
The thing is about that ticket price thing though as well. It's like what they're not taking into account is like a couple of young guys like yourself. You're going there. What about your transport? What about you getting a couple of beers? What about getting something to eat? You know what I mean? And you're talking £100 for a day out. Do you know what I mean? It's easy. That's minimum.
That's the thing, mate. It's like you're literally saying, even right, if you've done the bare minimum in the sense that you get to train up an hour before the game and then left straight after the game. It's like you're saying, mate, you're paying £100 for the sense of 3 hours a day out. If anyone else say to you you're spending £100 in 3 hours, you're like, what the fuck have I done? It's getting to a point where it's becoming, when you're watching the price of everything else going up, you're actually pricing fans out of games, and that's the thing. And then you're going to have people that will sit on social media, whether they're pundits, whether they're people from England that want to slate the league or whatever, and saying, look at the state of the turn now, you know, it's shite going to away grounds that the home fans can't even sell out. Like, no wonder. Like, no, genuinely no wonder. Like, you don't want to pay that money.
When Steve Clark came out, I think it was not by much, but when Steve Clark mentioned the prices for the World Cup, FIFA actually has now came out and reduced some ticket prices. So you maybe are looking at a stage where maybe like you need the managers, or I was going to say like boardroom there, but if any boardroom's not going to say it, it will be Celtics. But maybe you do need the owners or the chairmans of these clubs, or even the manager, just being like as I mentioned to you, Brooklyn, about the whole the thing in La Liga where they were going to play a game in Miami. So before every single game, the players took kickoff and then never moved for like 20 seconds. And now the game in Miami's been cancelled. Obviously, we were using that comparison with how bad officiating is, like doing like some sort of protest for the officiating. But maybe maybe the players might need to listen to the fans and maybe do something as well. And that's going like extreme, but it is becoming absolutely mental to go to a game. But that's the thing. It's not as if we're being daft paying this money, because we would pay anything to go watch the team that we love. Do you know what I mean?
The thing is, it's a UK problem as well, because you're paying hundreds of pounds for a ticket down in England, and honestly, you watch some of the matches, especially on like a Sunday. You're watching, getting ready here for Super Sunday. It's the most boring games in the world. You can sit and watch. You know what I mean? And again, that's hundreds of pounds for a ticket, and then that's not even including them going to a game, transport, and a couple of beers and all that. You know what I mean? It's just a total fortune for everything, man.
Mate, see, the thing is, you're spot on there, because Arsenal have obviously notoriously got the most expensive season tickets. And again, mate, I was sitting with my pals on Saturday night and we'd watched Liverpool Tottenham game, which was actually surprisingly an unbelievable game. You usually get pure excited for these games and they're shite, just like you're saying. But the Arsenal game came on after it, mate, and we were sitting to have a couple of beers. We turned it off after 10 minutes. So it's like you're saying, you're paying a season ticket at Arsenal's something, I don't know, it's like the minimum's like £2,000 or something. And I know obviously they're top of the league now and they have been fighting, but they're winning 1-2-0 and it's for corners. Like, if I was paying that money to watch it and I was looking, and like you're saying, if you're spreading it over a full year between your season ticket and travel in London and drinks, you're probably comfortably between £4,000 and £5,000, and that's just for you, never mind taking your kids and everything else to the games. There needs to be something done, but I think especially, and this doesn't go for every player, but I think a lot of the players are just out of touch now with the amount of money that they're on. They probably don't even think about this, and then as well they get X amount of tickets to give to their family, so they probably don't even know how much a ticket is, because there'll be someone at the club that sorts everything for them. Whereas obviously, even going back probably 10 years, it wasn't really like that. It was very much like players would actually be in touch and would know, like, this is how much a ticket is and can you sort one for so and so, whatever else. But I just wanted to, because we mentioned that and just talk a bit on.
Well, just quickly before we'll move on to sort of the other games briefly, but just before moving on fully for the Hearts and Rangers game, Jamie, do you think Rangers are out of this title race, and do you think Hearts can win it?
I think they can win it, but I was actually thinking about this earlier on as well. I mean, our obviously Hearts deserve praise, right? Because they're 6 points ahead of Celtic at the moment. Celtic have got a game in hand, but Celtic have been terrible this season, and they're still only 6 points ahead with a game in hand. So that, to me, if there was a proper decent team in Scotland this season, they'd be 15, 16, 17 points cleared by now. So Hearts can be caught, you know what I mean? So again, I think down the line, if Shanklin gets injured, if Braga gets injured, if Kirikis gets injured or whatever, I mean, they've not got the players to come in and, you know, bed in, and like, they're not going to get the goals that Shanklin scores. They're not going to get the creativity that Braga creates. And that, do you know what I mean? So Hearts, they have to strengthen in January. Whether they've got that in them to actually strengthen enough to go and win the league, time will tell. But for me, it really depends on whether Celtic kick on under Nancy here. It really depends. Like I say, the next 3 games is huge for Celtic. If they win, if they get maximum points out of them and then they go on a run, then Celtic will win the league, I believe. But I mean, it's a tough ask under this manager. But it really depends on Celtic what happens there, in my opinion, whether Hearts win the league or not. Because
I think
I don't know, I don't know what you think, but I still think Celtic have got by far the best squad in the country.
I think pretty much everything you've said spot on, and I do. My concern is that, see, if Hearts don't go on to win this league, you're actually genuinely looking. I think you're going to get a better chance. I know obviously Tony Bloom came in and says I think it was a 5-year plan that he had, or maybe a 10-year plan, whatever one it was. But I think you're not, even within those 5 years, Rangers and Celtic will always strengthen. I know obviously Hearts have got this influx of cash now, and they've got the Jamestown analytics kind of set up, and obviously it's getting so much praise, and rightfully so. But I don't think you're going to get a better chance. When you look at everything that's happened at Rangers and Celtic, going from literally top to bottom, I don't see them getting a better chance. And I do think it's like you're saying, they're one key injury away, which I think, like you're saying, your Braggage, your Keziridis, your Shankland, and also probably Halkett in there as well. And Halkett and Shankland in the last couple of seasons have been notoriously injury prone. Obviously, we don't really know enough about Braga and Keziridis, but I think if you watch one of them go out, you could be looking at it, and it is mental to say the fact that Celtic, despite everything that's happened, despite the fact it's the first time they've lost 3 games in 3 games in a row since like 1917 or whenever it was, that they've actually still arguably in contention for the title. But I think that does just sum up Scottish football this season. Anyone seems to be able to beat anyone.
No, I agree as well with the two of these, and these next 3 games are massive. And the thing is, Hearts will crumble because they did there. I think they went 6 games or something without a win, but Celtic kept winning, and that might be the difference. You know, Hearts next 3 games they could maybe win one, draw one, and lose the other, but Celtic might lose 2 and only win 1. So it's it is. I think even though Hearts are favourites, it's definitely still in Celtic's hands, because even the past couple of years when Rangers have been close to it, you know, I'm thinking especially under Clement, when there was that 3-3 game at Ibrox, and then Rangers went on to lose away to Ross County and possibly even at home to Motherwell, I think it was. I feel like when it does come down to pressure situations, Celtic can control games a lot better. But the thing is, there is a lot of players like Nigren, who's probably he's had some very poor performances, but his numbers does speak for himself. But like, he's going to be in one of the main players at the end of the season, and he's never really been in this pressured situation. But signings will be massive for all teams, you know. Even Chris Boyd has ruled Rangers out of it completely. But Rangers could sign well, but the thing is, Hearts could sign well. But what you said, Jamie, is so true. It's not even the three at the back; it's the high line. You know, is it just going to be the case where Celtic concede 2 and need to score 4 to make sure they get the 3 points? So that could be the difference. Definitely the January transfer window. Just moving on briefly on to the rest of the games. Obviously, Motherwell, it was a late goal against Dundee, but who'd have thought? Well, I did predict Motherwell to be top 6, but I never thought they'd been sitting third place. Third place at Christmas. So, what you made of Motherwell this year, Jamie? Like their new manager and how well they're playing football.
Really good. Had a wee look at his kind of stats before he went to Motherwell and that, and he's won trophies as like an assistant manager. He's done really well as a manager on his own as well. Winning a lot of games and that. So I was quite confident when he went in there, and I'm not surprised that they're starting to, you know, they're playing really good football and stuff like that. It was a wee bit of a blip when in the semi-final against St Mirren, but in the league they've been tremendous. I watched the highlights of the game you're talking about the weekend there. I thought there should have been 5 or 6 by the looks of it. You know, they had numerous amount of chances, a bit like the Celtic game. but they just couldn't stick it away. And then obviously Slattery gets a good header towards the end. But they're a decent team. They've got some good young players as well. We had David Clarkson on the podcast that I did. We kind of like we kind of try and speak to footballers, ex-footballers, current footballers, whatever.
Yeah.
We had David Clarkson on, who's the head of the academy at Motherwell at the moment, and he said that all the young players that are coming through at Motherwell now are just tremendous. That he's speaks so highly of them. So I think the future's looking good for Motherwell under this manager, under the squad they've got and stuff like that. They look good.
Do you think as well? So obviously we never like to see people get sacked or whatever, but the other week there, me and Brooklyn, I mean, it didn't really be rocket science, but we did predict that Kettlewell would get the sack. Do you think Presley could be the next manager that is on his way out? I mean, Martindale seems like he's never going to leave Livingston no matter what situation. So do you think it could be Presley and Dundee that goes down this year as well?
I think Livingston will go down, to be honest. I think that they've got the weakest squad at the moment. I know loads of people were saying that, Stephen Presley would fail at Dundee, but the thing is, it's like, with a team like Dundee, we've got one of the lowest budgets in the Scottish Premiership, surely. What is it they're expecting? What is it they want? Is relegation, beating relegation, is that enough? If it's not enough, then what is it they're expecting? Because, listen, I think loads of people looked at Stephen Presley and his previous record up here and stuff as managers, and I think they kind of prejudged him. But what they're forgetting is he was doing it at Brentford, teaching a lot of young boys for years, and that obviously that size of league under Thomas Frank as well, and that. So I don't think Stephen Presley's doing a terrible job at Dundee, to be honest with you. I mean, like I say, loads of people were probably expecting him to have 1 point, if any points at this point, and be rooted to the bottom of the Scottish Premiership. But that performance against Celtic, for instance, they were fantastic. I know that's one performance in that, but they have got some good players in that squad, and I don't think Presley. Again, it just depends on the expectations. I think Livingston will go straight down, but I think that maybe Dundee will maybe be second bottom. I think they might go in the playoffs.
And do you know, I think everything that you've said is pretty much spot on, because to be honest, we were guilty when we're kind of doing our pre-season predictions, and even at the start of the season when you were kind of seeing obviously early doors of the League Cup, we were pretty ruthless, to be honest, and Presley basically said he'd be lucky he'd maybe get a De Boer situation at Palace where he'd get 3 games and then that would be him. But we kind of did start to, I think both of us started to come round to him, and it's like you're saying, it's exactly what do they expect, and at the end of the day, he's probably surpassed the expectations. Whether, despite the fact they are, kind of second bottom, whatever, it's the performances have been nowhere near as bad as what we thought. Especially, I said, if you're going off when you watched them in pre-season, you were really fearing the worst. They've went and got a draw at Ibrox. They've turned up against Celtic as well, and they've taken points for every single team that's around about them. And again, to kind of touch on Motherwell, because I slated you as well, mate. See, when you said that top 6 out at the start of the season,
I know you went for me, man. You went for me.
But mate, I think it was understandable. But because you were looking, obviously, Lennon Miller being their best player, he leaves. You are looking at Halliday, who'd played consistent minutes for them last season. He was a captain. You were then going, well, he's another year older. It seems as if they've just essentially brought in a full new squad, and somehow it's getting fucking performances out of Stephen O'Donnell. That is a magic in itself. I'm telling you that right now. That is fucking a magician right there. Stephen O'Donnell centre back nonetheless, but again, it does just show you. See, when a manager, if they come in and they get their ideas across properly, it shows how quickly it can change. Because you would never look at a Motherwell, no matter if it was last season too, no matter who was in that squad, you would not expect them to pop it the way that they do. And they just look so comfortable. And it doesn't matter who they're playing, high line, low block, whatever it is, they stick to what they know. And they won't change it, but they don't need to change it. Obviously, the one time you would argue is, like you kind of touched on there, Jamie, was obviously a semi-final. Again, it's not as if it was news to them it was getting played at Hampden, like everyone knows that, but maybe just that difference in pitch was kind of what had done them out of it. But I think Motherwell actually do have. Do you think it'll be disappointment? Well, this is obviously both. Do you think Motherwell will be disappointed if they don't finish in the top 6 based on how they've started this season?
100%, mate. Aye.
You think so?
Aye.
100%. Sitting third at the moment, playing really well, scoring goals. Like I said, good team in that. I think they'd be absolutely gutted if they didn't make the top 6 this season.
So what would
You're looking at a world here where Celtic, up until maybe last year and a wee bit under Ange, always struggle, or sorry, not last year because Livy just came up, but a couple of years ago, Celtic always struggled away to Livy. And you're actually looking at a stage where if Celtic go away to Livy and don't win, and say Motherwell do win, they then go away to Motherwell, and if Motherwell beat Celtic, they then go above Celtic. Which, saying that, makes you go, what the fuck? But it could happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if it did. So obviously it is still pretty close. Like Aberdeen, who is in 6th, and Falkirk, who's in 7th, they are only 6 points behind Motherwell. But I don't see them fully dropping out of it. I do see them staying up there, and that's a good season for them. Obviously, they maybe would want a wee Scottish Cup to end the season, but I think to go from the past couple of seasons they've had to get a sort of fourth or fifth place finish would be massive for them. And then as well with Dundee, as you said, Jamie, what do the fans really expect? Obviously, they got that kind of wild top 6 finish a couple of years ago under Tony Docherty. But they've never really had anything like that as well before or since. So I think Presley, I think they would be daft to get rid of him. I don't think he's done anything wrong. You know, even though he went to Celtic Park and get beat and they get battered possession-wise, they did only lose 1-0. Same with Motherwell at the weekend. They get battered possession and chances-wise, but they only conceded 1 goal. They've went to Ibrox and drew, beat Celtic at home. And they've had a good results here and there against Hibs and stuff like that. So, I think
they
he
go
will be there
down.
the whole year, to be fair.
See if they go down, do you think Presley would be able to bring them straight back up, or do you think you'd maybe end up with a Ross County situation?
I don't think coming straight back up's really a thing anymore. Like even St Johnstone might not do it. You know, Thistle could still be the ones to win that league. So I'm not sure.
It just
But you
depends
think-
on kind of recruitment and all that and all, doesn't it? And
Well,
stuff.
aye.
But you said about Tony Docherty there as well. Never have I seen a manager like that, just a total victim of his own success. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Total victim of his own success. But top 6 finish, which is just incredible. I bet you that wasn't on their season objective that season, do you know what I mean? And then obviously next season, because they're no hitting the heights, they just decide to let him go. Obviously, he's went to Ross County and that's still worked out. But I mean, at Dundee, for me, beating relegation and all the teams you mentioned there, Shay, that Stephen Presley and Dundee have played and stuff and got results against it. So I saw teams that you're not expected to get results against. You're talking about Celtic and Hibs and all that. Teams like Dundee, they're looking at Livingston, they're looking at Kilmarnock, they're looking round about them. That's where Stephen Presley will be judged. Falkirk's done it. The kind of lower teams in that. So I think Dundee will be. They'll not go straight down. That's for sure. Nah.
Yeah. No, I agree. Just moving on, 2 more games kind of to quickly cover. Obviously St Mirren beating Livy 1-0. They had a VAR decision against them again. St Mirren have had quite a few dodgy ones this year. But I think, Brooklyn, me and you predicted a draw and I predicted Livy to win. I just thought St Mirren would have a bit of a hangover after the cup final. But what did you kind of just make of their performance in the final, Jamie? It was pretty much perfect, wasn't it? They just sorted Celtic perfectly, I thought.
They looked at his tactics and went, right, how can we exploit this? And that's what they done. Every time, kind of long ball, the 2 boys were in on goal. It was just constant. I thought St Mirren were fantastic that day. I thought they played to their strengths. We done a podcast the night before with a couple of St Mirren fans, St Mirren podcasters, and this is the first time that I can remember in my whole lifetime, sitting down a couple of nights before a cup final and going, Celtic will get beaten in this final of a team that isn't Rangers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that is unheard of, really. I can't imagine. We were all pretty convinced, St Mirren, they've got a great chance, they'll probably win it. That's how it kind of went about, and St Mirren done exactly what they did today. I mean, it could have been more. They could have scored more. Gogic, if they'd have just connected with that header, and a couple other chances in that as well. So, fair play St Mirren. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't pick St Mirren to win that game actually, because usually when teams win cup finals, that you would expect maybe a bit of confidence and being on a high and going and win that. So, but I totally get it. I'm sorry, I get why you think maybe about a hangover, but I think when you win a cup, man, you're getting into games full of confidence, aren't you?
I think you
I
definitely
thought
should
they
be.
would have just enjoyed themselves too much, man. They had every right to, but to be fair.
I think that was the thing. Like when you're looking at it, obviously, with a cup final, it's a one-off, so anything can happen. But I think obviously when I was looking at it, it's the league form is still actually been. I think obviously with the cup run, and they had obviously taking Celtic right down to the wire even in the league. They obviously a good performance against Rangers as well. The league form itself, in the grand scheme, they've actually been kind of under the radar for how poor they've been. I think at one point or another, a couple of weeks ago, Shay, you were saying that obviously depending on how the results were going to go, they would have been in the bottom two at one point or another.
Yeah, they were close.
So you're kind of looking at it and you're going, they've got this massive high. Again, probably a win that not everyone, despite Celtic's woes, you still kind of, like you're saying, more often not back them going into a cup final. Point 11 who are going to set up be difficult to beat. I actually thought, like I said, it was going to be a draw. But again, hats off to them. This could, it's like you're saying, this could be the confidence booster though. Now that they have went out, they've won the cup and they've won straight after it as well. You could watch them start to climb up the table very quickly because again, like we've said, everyone seems to be able to beat everyone this season, and it's you can sit and you can look at stats and everything else and try and predict, but this season it's just so difficult, man, to try and figure out who's going to do what.
I think the cup final for St Mirren might have been, or that cup run might have been a bit of distraction for them. You know what I mean? For the league and stuff. So,
Aye.
and then obviously once that was out of the way, they could fully focus on Livingston and then the rest of the season. I think St Mirren will finish top six or not, to be honest.
They're up
So
there.
who-
Obviously, that was some run they had. To be fair, they beat Hearts and stuff as well.
So who would you be having in your top six, Jamie? So obviously right now we've got, you're saying Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Motherwell, St Mirren and Aberdeen. Because that
The
would
only
leave Hibs and Falkirk out.
the only contentious one would be I'd maybe swap Hibs and Aberdeen.
Right, aye.
And I think that Aberdeen, that's the only one I would say. If I was to be honest, it's hard putting it because you look at January and you think what they're going to bring in, and
Well, that's the thing.
you know, as it stands right now, I'd probably say Hibs. I think they've probably get more momentum and stuff, but like Aberdeen only need to add one or two players and they could swap into. But I think the other five are in, mate.
They're a set. Aye, I agree. Just before we kind of move on to, sorry, that was 3 games. We've got Kelly and Dundee United games. But Jamie, just before we move on, right? Celtic go away to bottom of the table Livy, who are not even on double digits yet. They're on 9 points. If Celtic lose that, do you even give Nancy the Motherwell game?
No.
I don't think you can. I know it's a myth that like Tony Macaroni where Celtic can't win in that, but I think this is a really poor Livy side. As you said, they've not got a great squad. You need to go and beat this lot, surely.
The thing is, I wouldn't, you wouldn't, but they will. See if we get beat out of Livingston, he's not going to get sacked. I don't even think he'll get sacked if we get beat out of Livingston and Motherwell. I think no matter what, they're thinking, right, that he's getting to the Rangers game. I really do. I really honestly do.
See, you touched on Livingston as well, though. I think it just sums up when your luck's out, it's out. Like, again, you've got Willie Collum coming on at the weekend there and saying, oh, we fucked up with the Fernandes situation. I mean, everyone in the fucking dad knew that was a Stonewall penalty. That Fernandes handball in the Rangers Livy game was so blatant. And again, it's one of those ones where you're actually just, it's actually embarrassing how incompetent what is classed as the best referees in our country. It's embarrassing how wrong they get it on a week-to-week basis. And that's the thing, you actually do, and there's probably every single team in the league has got a really bad decision against them this year. But you do feel as if Livy seem to get them more than anyone. And the problem is, see, the referee, Willie Collum, head referee, can come out quite comfortably and say, we got it wrong. But see if after the Rangers game, David Martindale went in his press conference and says, the referee got that bang ordered and blah, blah, he'd be suspended. But then Willie Collum can say 2 weeks later, there needs to be something done. I know we kind of very briefly touched on it when you'd obviously said a couple of months ago we'd said that whole Liga thing, but
Yeah.
how Willie Collum, who wasn't a good ref while refing, is somehow then became the head of refereeing.
I know.
You're just at fuck me, man. Like, when will it end?
I'm
'Cause I
glad
think
that you're actually going down the road though of, saying it's the referees and VAR and all that's ability, because I'm sick of reading, football fans blaming certain referees for their football team getting beat, or for
Aye.
it's absolute nonsense, man. As if these guys who are getting paid really well are going to just go in and make deliberate decisions to beat your team
Aye.
when their fans
Yeah.
their bosses and all that are all sitting in the stands, their own TV, the scrutiny that's on them all the time. As if you're
Aye.
just going to go, you know what, I support Rangers or I support Celtic or I support Motherwell, and I'm just going to make that decision. It's just so football fans, man. Sometimes they're just deluded, aren't they? They really
Oh,
are.
mate,
How can we not
that's
just admit that sometimes, that the standards aren't there? The standards just aren't
Aye.
there in Scotland.
mate, 100%. It's we've sat on this before, and we've bumped into people that have said to us that like yous are both too impartial sort of thing. Because again, you listen to so many different voices talking, whether it's actually on Twitter or whether it's YouTube, whatever it is, and it's after an old firm game. It's a classic John Beaton, classic Nick Walsh cheating, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's nothing to do with that. It's actually nothing to do with who they're affiliated with or what supporters club they went to or anything else. So like you're saying, these people are paid a wage. They know for a fact if they end up being that blatantly obvious, they're going to get sacked and they'll be refereeing grassroots football. It wouldn't
Exactly.
make sense for them to do it. But the issue, just in a whole, is the fact that the refereeing is just at such a poor standard to a point where at times it can look like cheating towards a Motherwell, a Rangers, a Hibs, but it's genuinely just because the standards that poor. And you're not really seeing any new referees coming through. It's still the same people, and that is a problem. Is you've seen Nick Walsh ref 100 games, you've watched John Beaton ref 100 games, and I think we said before, probably during his time, one of the actual better ones, Bobby Madden, and I know I say better loosely, I just mean better out of the rest of them,
Aye.
was essentially chased out of Scotland by both sets of fans.
No.
Aye.
It's
Again,
crazy, man.
You're not
It's
going to see new refs because why would you want to be a ref in this environment?
well, that's the
Why
thing.
would you want
no.
that?
That's the thing.
See, the thing is as well, though. I mean, obviously we're talking about it being Scottish football fans and that, but you watch down in England and that, and they've got their TV shows with, Howard Webb and all that, doing that with Michael Owen and stuff. So they've all got their problems as well. But I think one of the main problems is the rules. I think everybody needs to be clearer on the rules of the game. It's like, I mean, the handball rule, for instance, how many years are we going to speak about these decisions? And,
Aye.
still to this day, I couldn't really tell you 100% what the rules are, to be honest.
No.
I
Aye.
mean, it's like, all right, we know it should be your arm should be in a natural position, but what if it's slightly extended out, or what about the one in the Aberdeen game the other week there, where the boy wasn't even looking at the ball, he wasn't even turned in the same way, the ball comes
Aye.
down, bounces off his arm. How's that a penalty? They give a penalty for that?
Mate,
And I'm
it's
like,
it's
uh,
it's it's laughable because again, it's like we've said before. We've came on talking about the weekend games, and we've said she's turned around and said, "Do you think it was a penalty?" And the amount of times where we essentially say the exact same wording, the wording is, "I don't think it is, but it was the same instant was given the week before," and you're going
constant,
so.
man,
And that is
constant.
it. That is the biggest issue. So you're getting all these idiots on Twitter that will sit and bring up something that happened 3 years ago in an old firm game or something that happened against Hibs, and you're going, well, that was given. You're going, right. Well, the problem is that shouldn't have been given. So now that they're correcting it, it's the other way about. It's a fucking headache, and that is the thing. So you do, like you're saying, Livingston won't get 9 points. Do you think if all these decisions went away, people say they balance out over a season, but you kind of need them to start balancing out soon if you're David Martindale, because it's one of those ones. Even if they do go ahead and beat Celtic, it puts more pressure on Celtic than it does relieve the pressure on Livy,
Yeah.
because it only still puts Livy on 12 points, and 12 points going into December, especially with Livingston, but they don't exactly have the budget like we are saying. A lot of teams need to bring players in. Do you really fancy, although Martindale's been good at it for years, do you fancy them to be able to go out and find someone that's going to be enough to save them? Probably not.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Dundee at the start of the season was my bottom shout, but I would confidently say as well as you, Jamie, I think Livy are down. And then I think it could be a toss-up, a Dundee and Kelly, the way it's looking now, for the playoff spot. But kind of moving on to Kelly, it really depends who their next managers could be. Do you get any ideas on who you think they should appoint, Jamie, to maybe give them a chance of staying up? Is there any names that stick out to you?
Well, I would stick with Chris Doolan for a week or two to see how it goes. I mean, he done a decent job at Partick Thistle. To
He
just,
did,
I know,
he did
obviously,
good at them.
I know it wasn't a great result to the weekend there, but so you're saying about Dundee and Kelly. I actually think Kelly are going to be fine eventually because I think they've got a decent enough squad. I mean, watching the highlights of the Falkirk game at the weekend, literally the only difference was Falkirk had Brian Graham, who stuck the ball in the back of the net. See if Kilmarnock had one of them, they'd have won that game by a few, I think, because they had most of the chances. Like I say, it's just the highlights I watched, but for what I've seen, they played pretty well, but they just missed quite a bunch of chances, and then Falkirk have that chance and Brian Graham sticks it away like he can do. So, I mean, if Kilmarnock go out in January and get a striker that can score goals in Scotland, I can see them being pretty comfortable, to be honest. I can see them get up a few places. But, I mean, as for the manager going forward, I would stick with Chris Doolan. Looking at who's been linked with it, I think Gary Holt, I've seen that he was linked with it. A couple of other names that escaped me. Peter Leven, I think he's been linked with it as well and stuff. But listen, it's a hard job for anybody to go into. You know what I mean? It's like at this point in time, obviously, I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but like Dom Thomas going over to the fans after the game, and you know, listen, I think that was handbags, to be honest, because you see that a million times like over the years, and I don't actually mind it at times because it shows a bit of passion. It shows that Dom Thomas actually cares and going over and. I'm not condoning the fact that he's fighting with his own fans, but I mean, if you're passionate and people are getting your team stick and getting you stick and that, and I don't mind getting it a bit back. And it seemed to get a wee bit more angry with the players trying to calm him down. That's what
see, to be fair, it's one of those ones as well. You do kind of forget. Like, obviously, we've spoken in this podcast about the money some of these players are on and everything else. But in no other walk of life would you sit and get abused in your workplace and just take it. Do you know what I mean? Like, eventually there is a breaking point because these players, it's like you're saying, they get some amount of abuse. It doesn't matter what club you're at, or if it's grassroots or whatever. There's some of the shouts we've all sat in stands. Some of the shouts you hear, man, are fucking brutal. So,
and it's not as if they're not trying. Do you know what I mean? Like they're out there trying. You can tell, and he actually has been quite a good performer for them this year. He played very well at Celtic Park when they were playing at home to Celtic. So that must get to you as well. Never mind receiving abuse at your work, but when you're actually there trying and giving your all, it's even harder to take.
And it's like you said as well, Jamie. Again, we've all been there. And you hear it with your pals, and someone tries to start an argument or something. There's nothing more frustrating when someone's holding you back because obviously Don Thomas he's not going to jump. He's not going to jump over the barrier and lamp the boy. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if he's going to go in the crowd and start fighting. But there's nothing worse when you've got someone pure holding you back and like pure trying to grab you. Just leave me alone, mate. So when you get like 5 or 6 of his teammates around him try to hold him back, he's just probably a bit like fuck off. But
I think
just kind of summed up our season now. But
regarding Kelly's appointment, I'm the same. I think I've actually got some mates who are big Partick Thistle fans. Obviously Brooklyn, we'll go on to it later. You're going to watch Partick Thistle at the weekend, but I think he could do a decent enough job at them. I think somebody that could have been in the running for it would have maybe been Stephen Naismith, but obviously he's not going to leave that Scotland role, especially with the summer coming up. So I agree with you. I would give it to Doolan for a couple of weeks at least, and obviously Brooklyn knows very well. I've always been a bit of a Baniac, so Scott Bain, our clean sheet, hopefully gets a call up to the World Cup. But Falkirk,
you like Scott Bain?
I like Scott Bain.
It only took an hour and 14
I thought we were
minutes
going to
to
agree.
get
I thought we were going to agree on everything on this podcast. That's just went right downhill, man.
But see, to be fair, I think the funniness of Scott Bain just being there at Celtic, and I think his first game for Celtic, the first thing he had to do was pick the ball at the net against Rangers, and then just all the sort of patter you would see, and then the next thing, Scotland's biggest game ever in years, Scott Bain's part of the squad, and you're just like, where's he came from? He's not been involved in anything. But obviously another clean sheet for Falkirk. That's been quite a few they've had this year. But Brooklyn, Motherwell was Matt out there shooting for top 6. Brooklyn was Falkirk's. You don't see them holding a top 6 spot, do you, Jamie?
I do not, mate. I actually, my prediction was for Falkirk to struggle this season, but that's not looking good because they are looking decent. To be fair, I think John
Aye.
McGlynn. I just thought, obviously the years of success they had in the leagues and stuff. I just thought that this might have been a step too far for them, but no, they're performing okay, and John McGlynn's got them playing decent football, and I don't mind them. I wouldn't mind Falkirk, doing well and staying up well and that, but I don't see them in the top six. I really don't.
Aye.
I think to be fair, see, although they're getting good results, the more you're watching the season go on, obviously I asked you earlier on, Jamie, who your kind of top six shout was, and we're saying we weren't even including Falkirk in that, and you're watching probably a Hibs or an Aberdeen be dropping out. So I think it probably is a lot for a Falkirk to try and sneak in there. But again, you would imagine that Falkirk's main aim this season was to stay up, or at least be fighting to get that kind of 11th spot, so they would give themselves a chance with the kind of playoff that would happen. But it looks as if, I know it's still early, but they look as if they're all but comfortable now. Obviously, a mixture of that being because how poor Dundee and Livingston have both been, but you can probably Falkirk are probably now at a situation where they can have maybe one eye on with a recruitment in January now to push on for next season, opposed to what
Yeah.
maybe Livingston are doing, which is recruiting for the Championship. I think Falkirk have maybe now got that a bit earlier than what they were hoping for, which is they can look to plan for next season.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those ones of on our side, it's took some massive results this season. And again, no matter how poor anyone's been, winning away from home, especially in this league, it's no easy at all.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you on that. Final game was Dundee United Hibs that we're going to just quickly discuss. Decent week for Dundee United, obviously beating Celtic, then a draw at home to Hibs. I think going to mean you the other week, just because when Kettlewell got sacked, we just done a kind of out there prediction, and we never really, I couldn't really pick a manager this year, apart from maybe Nancy, who could be next sacked, because I agree with you, Jamie. I don't think Dundee would get rid of Presley. Livy are not going to get rid of Davy Martindale, and at this point, Kettlewell's away. I do think if there was an out there prediction, David Gray could end up under pressure. I feel like a lot of his performances have went under the radar. They've conceded quite a lot this year, but a big game for them this weekend, obviously Edinburgh Derby. A chance to maybe peg back Hearts. They don't want their rivals going to win the league as well. What are you made of Hibs this year? They kind of just exceeded your expectations, or just what you expected for them, are slightly disappointing, Jamie?
No, I think they've done pretty much what I thought they would do.
Yeah.
They're no under pressure at the bottom of the league or anything like that. They're no pushing for the league or anything. You know what I mean? They're there or thereabouts in kind of fourth, fifth, sixth kind of position.
Yeah.
I've got to admit though, I've been pretty disappointed with a couple of our players. I've been pretty disappointed with Bowie. I think when the start he made, and that goal he scored in Europe was absolutely phenomenal. The one where he chipped the goalkeeper was just unbelievable. But he's not really kicked on for it. I know he scored at the weekend there, but for me, he doesn't get himself involved in games enough anymore. I mean, at the start of the season when he was full of confidence, he was coming in deep and he was getting himself involved in games. Now it's kind of like, even when he comes down in deep in that, his touch is wayward. He'll kind of lose the ball and his passing's a bit of a stray now and stuff. I don't know whether it's the pressure of, getting in the Scotland squad and people talking about his name, the way Lennon Miller was last season, and maybe he's still a young boy, you know what I mean? So it's a lot for a guy like that to take. But I mean, I've been disappointed with him and and a couple of other players and that. They've not kicked on like I thought they would have. But I mean, I think David Gray is still doing a decent enough job. I don't think he's anywhere near kind of being under pressure yet. I know what you're saying though. If they kind of go on a continuous run, then possibly. But what it's like, mate. If they go out and beat Hearts on Saturday, then
Everything's flipped.
Aye.
I think what's interesting about Hibs though is that obviously, like you're saying, there's been some players that have been disappointing. I was quite big at the start of the season about Bowie, like you're saying, he's kind of tailed away a wee bit. I don't think either the Cardins have been probably what they were last season. But you also then do hear a lot of Hibs fans and people in the kind of Scottish football media raving about some of the players. Obviously, Rocky Bashiri, a lot of people are talking about at the start of the season how he turned a corner. McGrath, Mulligan gets spoken about kind of constantly. So it's weird how you're kind of. Do you remember over the years? So always like Rangers fans being like, we've got the best midfielder in the league when we have Rask, we've got the best fullback, we've got the best, and you're going, well, you've got the best, but you're not really competing. I feel as if you're kind of at that stage, obviously not to the same extent, but like with Hibs, I think that's why I'm slightly let down on them, is because when you do watch them and you do hear people kind of raving about the players, like I said, the McGraths, the Mulligans, everyone's talking about how amazing their seasons have been. And I know 2 or 3 people don't make up a full squad and they can't just pull them through. But I look at that squad on paper and I'm like, should they maybe be where a Motherwell are, where you're kind of in that top 3 or 4? I think that's why I'm a little bit down on them, because Davy Gray, obviously, he's been there now for what, 18 months, maybe 2 seasons. I would maybe have liked to seen a bit more, especially they brought in, obviously, you look at their front line on paper, you know, McGrath
Strong.
playing balls, you've got a rotation of Bowie, Boyle, and the boy they brought in for £1 million as well, who I think when I see him, he looks quite sharp. So I think I would just maybe hope for a bit more, and I do think if I seen some Hibs fans getting on at kind of Davy Gray again on social media after the Rangers game, because basically saying no matter what situation Rangers are in, Hibs can't seem to take any points off them. If they go out and lose the Edinburgh Derby, see, especially if it's in the off chance a 2 or a 3-0 to Hearts, I think you could see quite a lot of fans start to turn on them and say, well, where is Davy Gray realistically taking us as a club? Because again, you know, we all know what football fans are like, and you will start to have the Hibs fans comparing and saying, well, how come Derek McInnes is doing that across the city and we are struggling in, you know, wherever it is, 7th or 8th place? So you could walk away for this weekend with David Gray. Not saying he'll be sacked, but I think he might have a little bit of pressure depending on how the result goes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And Jim Goodwin as well, just quickly, obviously, he's kind of been under a bit of pressure by Dundee United fans, but obviously a big win against Celtic, you know, I think a lot of people actually maybe did expect Celtic to lose that, but when they had so many chances and went 1-0 up, you thought, oh, there's the first victory for Nancy, but Dundee United did well to get back into it, and I was rating Dundee United at the start of the year. They know they pretty much changed their full squad as well, but they have had a couple of poor run of results, but I think if you find he starts to maybe lose a couple of games again, he could be under a lot of pressure as well, as Dundee United manager. But that's us went over all the games. So what we'll do now is I've already took notes of my predictions. I've added 2 extra games in because Brooklyn wanted to add in the Queen's Park Partick Thistle game because he's going to it. But I've also added in a prediction for the Celtic Rangers game because this might be our last show, Brooklyn, before until after the new year.
Aye.
So I'll give you my result, one game at a time. I'll go first and then we'll just go front and then back the way. So after kind of saying he's under pressure for the Hibs Hearts game, I've went 2-1 to Hibs. So what are you going for that, Brooklyn?
Fucking hell. I'm going to say 3-1.
3-1 Hearts, okay. Early kickoff, never back early kickoff. Jamie, what are you going for that?
I'm going to go 2-1 Hibs as well.
2-1 Hibs, okay.
I can't believe you two have agreed on absolutely everything for the last hour and a half, except
Well,
Scott
no
Bain.
Scott Bain. We'll not agree on
Except
Scott
for
Bain.
Scott Bain.
Scott Bain's the only thing. And then I'll start with you going back the way, Jamie. So it'll be Dundee against Falkirk.
Oh. Score draw, mate. 1 each.
1 each. Brooklyn, what about you?
I'm going to go against my top 6 shout, mate. I'm saying 2-1 Dundee.
Off. And earlier on, when I noted mine's down, I went for 1-0 Dundee. So I went against Falkirk as well. Livy versus Celtic. I have went somewhat bold, but I'm like, this Livy side are too poor. So I went 3-0 Celtic. Brooklyn, what about you?
2 each. A
I knew
Desmond.
you were going to do that. I fucking knew you were going to do it.
A wee Desmond.
Jamie?
Right, well, Celtic are definitely going to concede anyway, that's for sure.
Right.
Will they score more goals? Let's just be positive, say aye, 2-1 Celtic.
You sound buzzing about it, mate.
Jamie, Rangers versus Motherwell, 3rd versus 4th.
That's at Ibrox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man. 2-1 Motherwell.
Oh, I'll just quickly say I've put that as well. So Brooklyn, what are you going for?
Genuine, I think the same thing.
Do you? That's 3-2 on Motherwell's.
Mate, I just don't see goals in Rangers. That is the problem. I just don't see them at all.
St Mirren versus Kelly. I've went 2 each for that game because I don't think I've put a draw yet for any game, so I've went 2 each.
I'll go 3-1 St Mirren.
3-1, no?
I'll go 1-0 St Mirren.
1-0. And then the final game of this weekend's games, it's Aberdeen versus Dundee United, Jamie.
2 each.
2 each. Brooklyn, what are you going for?
1-0 Aberdeen. They
1-0.
fucking hate scoring goals.
I've went 2-1 Aberdeen. And then just Brooklyn, you wanted to add in Brooklyn. The last time you did this,
The game get fucking
you went to a
postponed.
Queen's Park
I
game and it got
don't,
called
mate.
off like just before kick-off. So I hope that happens again.
Cheers, mate.
So Queen's Park Thistle. You've said the bubble would burst for Thistle, but I've actually went 3-1 Thistle. I went 3-1.
Queen's Park 2-1.
Just
What
because
end are you going in? What team are you supporting that game?
To be honest, mate, I'm impartial. My pal works for Queen's Park, so I should be supporting him. But I've got some family ties to Partick Thistle, mate, so I'll go with half and half scarf on that day.
But what end are you sitting in? Queen's Park or Partick?
They've only the one stand, mate, it's Leicester Hampden.
Oh, is it? All right, okay.
Aye.
I'll go 2-1 Partick Thistle.
2-1 Partick. So obviously, because the manager at Queen's Park, he was at Dumbarton last year, and he brought in a few he signed a few Dumbarton players and stuff. So,
Took big Mikey Roof with him.
Mikey Roof, he's always got Matty Shields as well, but no slagging Dumbarton or anything. But I'm just like, I don't think Queen's Park have been that good this year. So I think it could be official 3 points, and then obviously, first game of the new year. Just because Jamie, you're on Celtic fan as well, we're going to do just a wee score prediction for Celtic versus Rangers on the 3rd of January.
This should come back to haunt big time, couldn't it, man? Whatever's going to happen in the next few weeks,
Aye.
man.
We can delete the recording if that's the case.
Right. Listen, right, so Celtic at home against Rangers. Rangers on the scoring goals. Celtic have got a big high line. Rangers have got quite a attacking, they've got loads of pace going forward and that. Oh man, I'll say it'll be 1 each.
1 each.
1 each.
I don't think that's a bad shout at all, to be honest.
Really?
I'll go for 2 each. I think it will be a draw. I think, like you're saying, I think both teams are set up to play against each other in a weird way.
See, I don't know if I have it in me to say Celtic will only win, but I did have 2 each, and I changed it because I'm just like, I changed it to 3-2 Celtic because I'm just like, Rangers are so poor, like a lot worse than Celtic. So I've went 3-2. So
I think
see
you're
how
looking at
they go.
You're looking at a game and it could actually be any result. Could be any result, any scoreline. Like, you genuinely, it could go either way. And you fucking knowing everyone else's luck, it could also be equally as boring as an 0-0 game at the start of the season, where we all got hopes up and go, at least it's 2 attacking teams, and then it just ends up a fucking boring 0-0 draw.
Worst game of the year.
With the surprise,
But that's
man.
right, it can't be any worse than that game. Nothing can
No.
be worse than that game.
It can be.
It can. Fucking honestly, it's just way.
But that does it for the predictions and talking about the weekend's games. So Jamie, we're going to kind of go into like what your podcast, obviously off the underside. I've done a bit of my research. On TikTok, you're nearly like 3,000 followers. You're nearly like 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and you've had guests like Templeton, Stevie Mallon, Peter Martin as well. Where did it all come about, and how do you sort of get these people on? Just through like messaging them, or do you know these people?
No, just messaging, mate. So basically, we started this podcast last October, me and my pal for work, Corey. And we were like, seen loads of podcasts over the years. We've always been really jealous of just sitting down doing things like this. I mean, this is what I dreamed of, just sitting down talking about football for an hour and a half.
Aye.
So Corey was like, I'm on board. And then we were like, right, we'll get somebody else because we didn't want it to be a Celtic podcast. So I'm
Aye.
very conscious of that, you know what I mean? Obviously, even at the start, I was like, do we even just admit we're Celtic fans or whatever? Or, how do we
Aye.
go about this? And because you don't want people to go, you're a Celtic fan, but eventually, the mask slips and you just have to be honest and say, I'm
Yeah.
a Celtic fan. So we were like, right, so, but we don't just want to talk to, Celtic fans, and we want to talk to everybody in Scottish football. So we got Davey involved, who's a big Rangers fan. So we were like, right, the three of us will try and make it just about Scottish football and no try and be biased at, I don't know if you've seen any podcast, but Davey can't help himself. He's a fucking
Yeah,
big
no,
boy.
I've
No,
watched them.
aye, man. There's no point in trying to take the chains off him, man, because he's just like, he's just he is who he is. You know what I mean? I think some people kind of like that. Even some Celtic fans are just like, you know what? At least he's fucking honest. But
Aye.
so we started that, mate. It was never ever an idea to get people on the podcast or anything like that. It was never a kind of like football players and stuff. I was always thinking about maybe interviewing other podcasters and talking to like this.
Yeah.
But I was like, why don't we try and just get, I don't know, just what came to me one day, I was like, why don't we try and just get a football player on and see what they, take their take on things and that. So it started off with ex-Kelly player, I don't know if you remember him, Alan Mahood.
Aye. I do
Aye,
remember him actually.
aye. He's turned out to be such a brand new guy, man. Still message him to this day. So I just messaged him on Instagram. And he was like, aye, I'll come on and that. So it was pure nervous and that, because obviously I'm assuming I'm a good bit older than you boys, but I remember him really well.
Mhm.
And so I was really nervous and that. So we done that interview, went well. And then I was like, do you know anybody else that would like to come on the podcast? And then he got his Derek Lilly. Remember him? He played for Livy and that. He scored in the
Aye.
2001 League Cup final to beat Hibs.
Yeah.
And just got him on. So that just took it for there, and I was like really enjoyed it, and like how do we get these? So went on for anybody that's wanting to do that kind of thing. I would fully recommend LinkedIn. So if you just go on LinkedIn, set up a profile
Aye.
of your podcast, and then the good thing about LinkedIn is if you connect with these guys and you send them, if they accept your connection, then you send them a message. 9 times out of 10, they're reading that message. Whereas on Instagram and all these other places, most of these guys don't read their messages. So
Yeah.
you're not getting to speak to them. Whereas on LinkedIn, a lot of them will. Don't get me wrong, 90% of people will ignore you. 5%
Yeah.
of people say no, and then the other 5% say I will do it. So we've just been really lucky, man. We've had Mark Warburton, Graham Murray, Murdo McLeod, should say
Yeah.
Peter Martin, Rory Hamilton. It's been unbelievable, man. The amount of guys that have just said aye. I'll come on. Shaban for Talk Sport. That was a good one. Do you know what I mean? She's sitting in Talk Sport studio, sitting talking to me on a Friday morning, and it was just unbelievable, man. So
Aye.
spoke to Shaban in the morning, and then at night time spoke to Jim Delahunt, and that was just a massive thing for me because there
Aye.
was a wee guy watching him on the telly and all that. So just been addicted to it, man. It's been loved it, and then obviously we do this kind of series as well where we talk to fans of different clubs and that as well.
Yeah.
Just like to hear kind of perspective of every kind of club in that. So aye, it's just been brilliant, man. It's just been a really, really good thing. It's you boys will know that talking about Scottish football, talking about football in general, is just one of the highlights of life, isn't it, man? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
a distraction for all the other kind of crap that goes on in life. So
Aye.
aye, man. I don't know. Are you ever thinking about doing that, going down the road and maybe interviewing football
Aye.
players or whatever? Or?
So like basically, that's what I was going to say. I kind of know how you feel when you're saying that it's surreal when you end up interviewing somebody you watch or whatever. Like I done another podcast with a boy, and that was just like a mixture of things that we had Sanjeev Kohli on, who was Naveed in Still Game, and that was like weird, just being like this is a guy I watched growing up and laughed at him, and then the next minute I'm asking questions, but it is the route you definitely want to go down because it's one of the ones, especially with something like this. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You know, as soon as you get one person on, they could give you somebody else's contact, and through that one person, you've then get 20 other guests on. So it's
Well,
definitely a good route to
perfect
go.
example of that is we had Stephen Dobby on the podcast, and that was just a brilliant experience as well. Talking to him,
Yeah,
he scored goals in like playoff cup finals and all that. You know what I mean? Down for Swansea
yeah,
and stuff. Because of him, we got Mikey Doyle, who's the captain of Cove Rangers right now.
Yep.
And then because of Mikey Doyle, we got Keegan Parker, who used to play for St Johnstone. And then it just kind of snowballed for there. We had Dave McKinnon on, who's an ex-Rangers player who played for Rangers in the 70s and that.
Aye.
And he was telling us a story about how his cousins with Murdo McLeod and that. And then he messaged me after it and he's like, do you want me to get Murdo for you? And I was like, aye. You know what I mean? Celtic legend on the podcast, obviously. So, aye, as you say, mate, you know what I mean? It's just snowballs and that. And still in contact with some of these guys to this day, you know what I mean? You put something up. Like I put something up the other day and Gavin Ray was like, oh, well done, mate. Keep smashing the podcast and all that. You know, like, fucking hell. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's just brilliant, man. It's been a brilliant experience.
It's probably
Who's been your favourite?
Tough, mate. It's really, really tough, man. I mean, like, Murdo McLeod was like a pure surreal experience because grew up, my dad used to sit me down and watch all the Celtic games and stuff and all the old kind of games and that. Murdo McLeod was obviously a big part of that. Such a brand new guy. I mean, Stephen Dobby was amazing as well. Mikey Doyle, all these guys. You know, I've not really had anybody that. Well, saying that, I'll be honest. I'll just be honest. There was one who was kind of like, you know, it was fine. Do you know what I mean? He was brand new, but just could tell he was not really. That was we had Phil Brown.
Aye, I know Phil Brown.
Aye,
I mean, the old City manager.
Aye.
Aye.
Don't get me wrong, he did nothing against the guy, but he was kind of just like, you know what I mean? So most of the people have just been absolutely brand new though and wanted to be on the podcast. It makes such a difference. See when somebody comes on and they'll just want to be there. Like Stevie Mallon was brilliant, by the way. You know what I mean? Still plays for St Johnstone the now, and straight away he was all smiles and he was wanting to talk to you and he wasn't up his own arse or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
it's probably mental. It's like you are both saying, like you've both used the word surreal, especially for you when you've got some of these guests on, like you're saying, they're continuing to watch you. You're now, I don't know if you've heard of this, but you're now in a situation where the people you used to watch now sit and watch what you do. And that, like, seeing you put it like that is mental. I think if when you sit down and actually think about it and view it from that point of view.
No, had him on the podcast, right? But he follows us on Instagram and that, right? But I obviously the nonsense videos I've been doing, where ranting and all that, I put them on Instagram, and then you look at the story, and Johnny Hayes has watched it, and you're like, Johnny Hayes, man, is a coach at Celtic right now. That is, you know what I mean? It's mad to think that he's watching all your stories and all that. And you're ranting about the Celtic man as well. You know what I mean?
Who's your dream guest?
Well, it's a couple of answers to this because football-wise, obviously, I would like to speak to people outside of football as well. We've had Grant Stott on, who's obviously like a radio presenter and stuff like that, and he's a big Hibs fan. We've had the boy Sean Corner, who's been in River City. He's a Scottish actor and stuff. So we like to speak to kind of people, you know, who are football fans that aren't in football as well.
Aye.
So a couple of answers to this. Like, football-wise, I would love Ali McCoist, Neil Lennon, Scott Brown. Any of the three would be amazing, man. I think they'd be really up for the podcast as well and talk away to you and stuff. As for like people who are football fans outside of there, go down the road of like Kevin Bridges would be amazing.
Aye, he'd be good.
Aye, he'd be brilliant, man. But I don't think Kevin Bridges really does podcasts, and I think he's more what I go Jonathan Ross or that, isn't he, man? Or that kind of stuff.
Sit on and all sorts.
Aye.
But no, that's us wrapped up, mate. Thanks very much for your time in Brooklyn News as well. But I hope you've enjoyed it, Jamie, and it's been great getting your different point of view in that as well. And even though we agreed on mainly everything apart from the Scott Bain thing, but these things happen. But no, thanks very much for your time, mate. And that's a pleasure. I hope everybody enjoys. This will be our last podcast before Christmas, and it's actually been to this date our longest podcast, and I've loved every minute. So thanks very much for your time, mate.
I've loved it as well, guys. Thanks very much for the invitation on. Happy to come on any time, and I'll give you a shout down the road, man, and come on my podcast if that's all right.
Of course, mate.
I'll definitely jump on. But I know, thank you for your time, Jamie, and you as well, Brooklyn, as always.
Cheers, boys. Merry Christmas.
You too, mate.
Merry Christmas to everybody, and take it easy. Cheers.